So, Jenny, please tell us about yourself. What do you do? Where do you come from? What's your favourite food?
So have we got an hour? So I'm Jenny Cornfield. I come from Leith. We live over there with my family. I help to lead the charity Soul Food Edinburgh along with my husband. It's community meals that are around the city, and even actually a couple in England that have a particular focus on folks experiencing homelessness, challenges of poverty, isolation, loneliness. We try, as a charity, we try and encourage local churches to step into those stories across the city. And I help to lead that. And my husband leads a church called Mustard Seed on Edinburgh Road, which grew out of our first soul food meal. Oh, my favourite food. Oh, I'm so sorry. Favourite food, cheese.
Not a great choice for me. You might have heard that Soul Food were in our kitchen for a while cooking meals. So it's been great to have those guys here, being able to use our space. So they're very cool. So Jenny, I would just love to pray for you if that's okay. Great. So if we just just bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for Jenny. Thank you for the work of Soul Food. Thank you for the hope that it offers to people. I just pray for that community, that would be a space where so many can come to know the love that you have for them. I just pray that it would be a space of safety and, comfort for so many. Thank you for Mustard Seed. Thank you for the community there too. I pray that you would bless that work and, just bless Jenny as she comes to speak to us. I pray that she would know your presence with her, God. Would you just give her everything that she needs now to speak to us? Would she know your peace? And would she know that you just smile at her and that you love her? In your name, amen.
Thank you, Hayley, and thank you too for your lovely warm welcome this morning. It really is lovely to be with you, and I'm especially excited by the sermon series and the talks that you're doing at the moment that are focusing on the Beatitudes, because I've just got to put my glasses on. I was 50 this year, can't live without them any longer. I digressed. I also shouldn't do that when you're 50. It's another issue. But anyway, a question that I have lived with for quite a while now is, what would it really look like if we truly lived the words that Jesus said? And the Beatitudes, obviously, are the words that Jesus said. And I guess the fact that this is an ongoing question for me highlights my belief that there's often a gap between the words that we read and teach and the lives that we live. For instance, what would it look like to live a life practically that believed that the poor are blessed and that theirs is the kingdom of heaven? How would our lives be different if we lived and breathed the words that the kingdom of God is here, right now, moving our faith from a thought to a lifestyle? When it comes to the Beatitudes, I think we've often thought of them as beautiful but uncomfortable words that we aren't quite sure how to relate to or attain. But what if we actually recognised that they're Jesus' manifesto for life lived to the full? His way of telling us that this is how to live. Here in these words is a new way to be human. Follow me by living this way, because it is going to lead to fullness of life. Learning to live to the beat of the Beatitudes is learning to live the Jesus way. Living to the beat of the Beatitudes makes us look like and draws us closer to Jesus. These blessings have the power to revolutionize our lives and our communities and even our world. So it's really exciting that we're looking at them and that you're looking at them over these next weeks. So the beatitude that we're spending a little time thinking about this morning is, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." Now this blessing is inviting us to recognize that mercy is all about the way that we see. Mercy is all about the way that we see and the way that we are seen. And this beatitude invites us into the way of compassion. Mercy recognizes that God looks at each of us with deep compassion, and mercy invites us to learn to look at others and to learn to look at ourselves with this deep compassion. It asks us not to judge, but rather to learn to look with love. And all of the Beatitudes invite us to adopt a posture, a way of being. And this Beatitude asks us to learn to see everyone, including ourselves, as beloved children of God, made in his image and deeply loved. Now, I used to belong to a city centre church where every now and again someone a little worse for wear would stumble through the doors and disturb the service. Now, it seems that during one service, I wasn't at this particular service, a man who was extremely drunk and quite loud came into the church and proceeded to walk down the centre aisle while the sermon was being preached. Admittedly, a little uncomfortable. But the story goes of how shocked people were by the man, and that nobody knew quite what to do until two people bravely, I quote, got up and managed to encourage him to leave the building. I remember hearing that story a number of times and feeling really sad. I wondered, had anyone asked the man if they could help? Why had he thought to come into a church in the first place? Did he want support? Had he thought that a church might be the one place where he was welcome, despite his appearance and his condition? It was a man I thought of a couple of years ago when 3 men stumbled into our little church service on Easter Road. They were significantly worse for wear, and one of them didn't have any shoes on his feet, and they were all bloodied and bruised. Now, I was actually preaching that day, and as they made their way into our church service, I remember thinking, I'm going to have to stop speaking so that we can help these men. Oh my goodness, and you can't stop a church service once it's in full throw, can you? It's just like terrible. But anyway, I knew that I would probably have to do that, but I didn't have to, because I welcomed the men into the church, and then I watched as 3 people got up from their seats. One person invited them to sit down. Another person went and piled 3 plates high with food and poured big cups of coffee and gave it to them. And then a third person went and got a bowl of soapy water and asked the man with no shoes if he could wash his feet. He then took off his own socks and shoes and gave them to the man. All of the 3 men wept at the compassion that they were receiving, and I had a hard time holding back the tears myself as I watched this beautiful scene of mercy play out before my eyes. Such a gentle example of compassion and welcome, things that are key in discovering something of what it is to be merciful, things that give a glimpse of the kingdom of heaven being here now. In his book, Recovering, Aaron White writes of how mercy is scandalous. Mercy is what's been given to each one of us who's met with Jesus Christ. We've been the recipients of God's scandalous mercy, when in all that we are, God meets us with open arms. We stumble towards him a little worse for wear, in our brokenness, our shambles, and our mess. And he says to us, welcome, dear one. Come in, pull up a chair, kick off your shoes, Curl up. You look tired. We're having a feast and there's plenty for you. We're so glad that you are here. The mercy of God is the love of God. And mercy dares us to believe that the truest thing about us is not that we're broken and flawed, but that we're beloved. Something that is really important for us to understand and experience for ourselves if we're going to be able to show mercy and compassion to others. We need to have known what mercy is. We need to have received it in order to be able to pass it on. Over this last year, I've taken part in something called the Ninefold Path Labs. Or, as the creator of these labs, a man called Mark Scandrett calls them, Beatitude boot camps. Along with people from all around the world, we meet on Zoom to take each beatitude in turn and then practice living it out week to week through experiments, practices, journaling and prayer. On the week that we meet to discuss and learn what it is to practice being merciful, we do an exercise all together that helps us focus on the way that we see and the way that we are seen. Now, it's a little bit, initially, it feels a little bit of a cheesy exercise. And, me in my non-merciful way was like, oh, sigh, do we have to do this? What we're asked to do is to form a heart shape with our hands. Tricky to do with a microphone, but you get the idea. And once we've done this, we're then asked to look around the room, the Zoom room, and look directly into the eyes of another person. Now, it can feel a little uncomfortable, especially when you're very reserved in English. But anyway, and then silently whisper this prayer. Beloved child of God, may you be well. We're reminded that the person that we're looking at is a being made in the image of God and that they are deeply loved by him and are precious to him. I was wondering if we can do this now because, a little bit of cheese, it's my favourite thing. I wonder if you can form a heart shape with your hands. Brilliant. Brilliant hearts there, although I have to lift my glasses to see them because I can only use my glasses to read. Lovely, lovely. Now then, could you look around this room at someone? And put your heart up and look at them through your heart. As you look at them, I'm letting this go on so it feels really uncomfortable, by the way. As you look at them, in your mind, pray this. Beloved child of God, may you be well. Beloved child of God, may you be well. How does it feel to look with this intention? Now, when we do it, it goes on for a little while. And actually, you really begin to find yourself praying very deeply for the person that you're looking at. How does it feel to look with this intention? But not only that, how does it feel to be seen with such compassion? The American journalist and social activist who is a complete hero of mine, Dorothy Day, she lived and worked amongst the homeless in New York last century, wrote of how, when you love a person, you see all the good in them, all the Christ in them. God sees Christ, his Son, in us, and so we should see Christ in others and nothing else, and love them. I wonder if you could hold up your hearts again. And you don't need to look at anyone else in this room, but I wonder if you put them in front of your face and picture a person whom you disagree with or find difficult. Or picture a person who has hurt you, or a person that you're finding it hard to forgive. I wonder if in your mind can you whisper, "Beloved child of God, may you be well." Mercy, Aaron White writes, can be painful. Oh, it can be so painful. It can feel really costly to let go of the ways in which we've been hurt. So costly. It can feel painful to confront the ways in which we ourselves haven't treated other people well. It can be challenging for us to recognize that we often judge and forget that the Jesus way asks us to look on others with compassion. For Jesus' mercy took him to a cross. Mercy said, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." Mercy said to the thief, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." Mercy declared to the crucifiers, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do." Mercy is God giving himself completely. And it's in the mercy of the cross that we see Jesus' full heart and soul, giving himself entirely for the promise of freedom and liberation. And it's at the cross that we learn the deep and powerful reality of God's grace that we too are called to practice. So if we were doing a Beatitudes boot camp this morning, I'd send you away with 3 things to practice. I'd ask you to do a journal entry where you thought through whether there were people that you were finding it hard to forgive, or whether there were things that actually you were finding it hard to forgive yourself for. I'd also ask you to do a daily practice of positive speech, trying not to speak judgmentally of others, but rather speaking only words of affirmation and compassion. Trying to do that daily. Now, the first time I did that, and actually maybe even the third time that I've done that, I failed within 10 minutes. In fact, I was doing one Beatitude boot camp with my sister, and we rang up to talk about our homework, and then realised that we'd completely trashed it in this area. It's so easy, isn't it, just to fall into speech that's not great and it's not affirming of others. So now that you know that I'm completely horrible, I'd then also ask you to do an experiment where you walked around your neighbourhood intentionally making eye contact with people and praying a silent prayer of blessing over them, looking at them with compassion, not looking with judgment. Maybe you could think of having a go at doing those things. If you wanted me to write them out for you at the end of the service, I would. Just pressing into what it means to live this compassionate, merciful way of Jesus. Because he said that the best way to live, the way of me to live, is this: blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. 2,000 years ago, Jesus spoke these words on a hill to a people who needed to hear them. And all these years later, we need to hear them still. They are words of life, and they are words for life. And I think that they're words for us individually, but equally they're words for us as communities. I think often the church has become known for what it's against and whom it doesn't approve of. It isn't widely known for the ways in which it simply just determines relentlessly to love. I think as the church, we haven't followed the Jesus way. Could you imagine what it would be like if within our communities we chose to truly look with compassion on each other, to always speak to each other kindly and treat each other gently, to champion each other, to speak positively and encourage each other? Could you imagine the impact on our neighbourhoods if all the churches in Edinburgh were known for the ways in which they loved extravagantly and sacrificially? This is something I think about a lot. And actually one of the main reasons that we began Soul Food, especially for those experiencing homelessness, the challenges, the injustices of poverty or isolation or loneliness, was that we longed for this city to know that the church cared, that people were hungry and that people were alone, and that the church wanted to step into these stories of injustice. We wanted anyone who came to a Soul Food meal to know that they were loved from the moment they stepped through the door. And often we've been told by someone sat around a soul food table, and even my husband Richard has been told as somebody's grabbed him by the shoulders and held him up against the wall, "You wouldn't let me in here if you knew what I'd done." And our reply is always, "Oh, but we would, because you and I have a God who turns no one away. And you and I are beloved." Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are those who look on others with compassion. Blessed are those who are able to forgive. Blessed are those who do not look with judgment, and blessed are those whose posture is love. Lord, in your mercy, make us like you. Teach us to love like you. Help us to face the pain of when we've been wrong, and lead us in your way of compassion, that others may see you in us and come to know you for themselves. May we be the merciful, and may we be a blessing. Amen.